Hey everyone, welcome back to I'm Married a Film Snob, where we review films of today and yesteryear. In this video, we're going to review the recent release The Menu, directed by Mark Mylod and starring Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy. Stay tuned into the end of CR ratings, and don't forget to comment down below.
Here we go, let's do it.
So in The Menu, a young couple travels to a remote island to eat at an exclusive restaurant where the chef has prepared a lavish menu with some shocking surprises.
The Menu is a black comedy sprinkled with thriller and horror elements that can never quite find its footing in straddling its tone between these diverse genres. Although the performances elevate the material, the story begins to fall apart, relying mostly on keeping a shock for the sake of shock value for us to stay engaged as an audience. And even after a while, these shocks become telegraphed and heavy-handed. The elements and themes the movie aims to tackle are interesting and complex, but the execution fails to live up to the promise of the deeper layers simmering below the surface.
It's a haphazard stew, made up of so many diverse elements, like Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen, or other shows like Top Chef, to Richard Connell's short story The Most Dangerous Game, and snippets from many thrillers and horrors that in the end does attempt an explosion of different flavors in your mouth, but ultimately leaves you with a bad taste.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean this in a disparaging way, as if the world of TV is beneath movies or anything, but you can tell Mark Mylod's background is primarily directing TV shows. His ultra-glossy style and way of covering scenes, along with his stylistic choices, show a director who is covering the material efficiently and by the numbers without too much flair thrown in, so we can focus on the script and the emerging characters within the story.
The cinematography is by Peter Deming, whose very mixed and varied career goes all the way from lensing films for David Lynch in Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and the 2017 Twin Peaks revival, all the way to movies like Austin Powers and Goldmember and Rumor Has It.
So Deming's a capable DP who, under the right direction, can achieve amazing films. But a movie like this again shows how a cinematographer is beholden to the scope of a director's vision, and when they are tasked with run-of-the-mill cinematography, that is what they deliver, run-of-the-mill. Not necessarily bad in any way, but mostly uninspired and bland.
A good chunk of the story takes place in one setting, in one room, so crafting dazzling visuals is harder. Therefore, the camera choices keep the story moving from point A to point B without too many stylistic distractions.
But again, this movie was never meant to be a visual treat. Its focus is on the actors' performances and the characters they build. Ralph Fiennes playing Chef Slowick is the highlight of the movie, and his performances are never wasted, even if the movie doesn't rise to meet his talent. Anya Taylor-Joy is also good at playing Margot, a high-class escort whose no BS attitude is a refreshing take in the middle of the stuffy environment.
There are decent supporting performances, one by Nicholas Hoult playing the obsessive culinary fanboy, but most notable is a great performance by Chau, playing Elsa, the head maitre d' of the restaurant. Her subtle and sneering character depiction is expertly executed, and her contemptuous attitude and interactions with the guests are pretty funny.
Tortillas deliciosas.
That was so good.
It was actually pretty funny, yeah. Now we'd like to mention some more of the positives we did enjoy of the storyline. We did like how the movie pokes fun at the world of high-end Michelin-rated restaurants and the conceptual gastronomic silliness that usually backs these snobby establishments. The scene where they are served a bread platter without bread, and instead of just giving the dipping sauces, is actually pretty funny.
Yeah. It ties back to the narrative Chef Slowick is trying to weave, in that bread is a poor person's food, but since everyone there is wealthy to afford such a lavish dinner, they don't get any at all. So the conceptual design of the dish is so advanced, it supersedes the actual food that is supposed to be present.
Yeah. And we both think this scene was actually pretty clever, because unfortunately in a lot of different artistic mediums of today, the conceptual conceit of something has become more important than the actual finished product or art form. If you can expound on something conceptually with enough snobby assurance, it can hold water and fool people into not calling out that the emperor has no clothes.
Now, related to that, the movie is very funny at showing the mystique some chefs build around themselves and the pedantic attitude they bask in that gives them an air of superiority. Chef Slowick is somewhat an amalgamation of Gordon Ramsay, Bobby Flay, and a few others, and it is very good at showing the abject fear they instill in their subordinates and the command they hold over them with an iron fist.
Yeah, you see all the lower chefs hunched over, filled with tension and intense focus, loudly spouting, "Yes, chef," or "No, chef," as if some military sergeant was doing rounds. And while it does seem ridiculous and over the top, it's actually not far from reality at all.
Yeah. You know, we've all at one point in our lives seen those ridiculous cooking show competitions on TV. Sometimes not so much for the dishes they prepare and cook, but more so for the belittling and harsh verdicts that's passed on to the chefs by the judges and the master chefs that judge their skills.
Yeah, that's usually why we watch those shows. It's not to see the actual finished dishes. It's to see someone like Gordon Ramsay just
go off.
Belittle and make people look stupid.
Yeah.
Come here, all of you. What is that? Bone's thicker than the meat. What is that?
I don't know,
It's
Chef.
not good enough. Get out. You're not good enough. It's off.
Now, lastly, on the positive notes, one of the few themes of the film that does somewhat work is exploring how an artist seems to lose his creative passion and spark the more recognition and the higher in the totem pole they seem to be. Chef Slowik has reached such a pinnacle that there's nothing left for him to accomplish, and no way he can surpass himself. So in a way, he's having an existential crisis, and as such, all joy he had from his craft has slowly been peeled away, causing an emotional cavity he's never able to reconcile.
He briefly recaptures a smidge of that when Margot asks him to cook a simple and delicious burger. No high concept frills, no snobbery, just comfort food, and he is momentarily brought back to what made him a chef to begin with, if ever so briefly.
Now, we try not to read or watch many, if any, reviews of films prior to watching them, and before we record these videos, we also tend to shy away from seeing what others are saying so as not to sway our own opinion. But a few of the comments we did come across have put a point of emphasis on how the movie pokes fun at social inequality and the snobby ultra-rich.
Right.
And those elements are definitely there, especially the vast gap between the service world and the consumer world.
In Chef Slowik's eyes, there's only two types of people, those that serve and those that pay for service. And while that simplistic encapsulation may not be too far from modern reality of fine cuisine, the hotel industry, and etc., it's the catalyst needed to spark the flame of the movie. He quickly sniffs out that Margot is just like them, a server, in a very different industry, but still, a server nonetheless. And those moments are some of the best in the film.
Now, the movie does have those elements of social divide, but for me, for the movie to actually work, even though it ultimately doesn't, it has to be more about cult of personality and the idolization of misguided power figures. Fiennes' Chef Slowik is like a Jim Jones type of character, and the film's isolated island and restaurant of Hawthorne become reminiscent of a Jonestown mass casualty situation, where orders are strictly followed and without question.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, religious fervor has been replaced by the search for culinary perfection, under the guise of one master chef. Yet the willingness of an entire staff to go through with a mass suicide feels like a shocking ending for the sake of it, and not one grounded in an organic outgrowth of the story.
Yeah. I think the story would have succeeded more if they had just killed off the customers and quietly covered up their murders, by making it seem more like an accident or something. And now for things that don't make sense.
Yeah, and this is where the movie starts to fall apart. Now, first is the whole fight and confrontation between Margot and Elsa. It's crammed in there to spruce up some action and keep the pace and tension high, but really serves no other purpose.
No.
Why would Elsa feel like her place is going to be taken by Margot when Elsa knew they were all going to die very soon afterwards?
Yeah.
That same night. Her fear of being supplanted and replaced within an hour or so of their imminent death is silly and doesn't make any sense.
Second, Margot was never on the original guest list and her arrival is unexpected. This changes the dynamic of the night and Chef Slowik's master plan. So how did he know that at some point in the night she would be able to momentarily get away, with his permission, sneak into his home, get confronted by Elsa, kill Elsa, and then take the keys from her person to be able to access the extra secret room that conveniently had a dummy transmitter radio set up to fake a way to call for help?
Yeah, so the whole scene with the fake Coast Guard is out of place and makes no sense. Did Chef Slowik happen to have one of his staff on standby with a fake Coast Guard outfit and boat the whole night, in case someone was able to run away and somehow access his super secret room that's under lock and key?
Now, was that part of his original menu and he somehow incorporated Margot into that storyline on the fly? And yeah, by the way, we could tell the whole time that the scene with the fake Coast Guard was a ruse by Chef Slowik. And while it tried to build tension, it was no surprise to us when it was revealed that it was all a show.
Yeah, as we were watching them, we were both like,
It's obvious.
this is a fake Coast Guard. And
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. Now, third of things that don't make sense is the characters that Chef Slowik has invited and handpicked to be sacrificial lambs to his final menu, all in a way make sense. The career-killing critic, the bored and unappreciative older rich couple who go to his restaurant simply because they can't afford it to pass their time without taking delight in his efforts, the obsessive fanboy who hero worships him without question, the douchey and self-entitled business-savvy entrepreneurs, again, all make sense, except the washed-up and past his prime actor played by John Leguizamo.
Yeah, so Chef Slowik explains why he's there, because on one of his few days off, he watched one of his crappy cash grab movies and was insulted by how bad the movie was. So he needs to die for that. This seems almost like a bad SNL joke that really doesn't fit into the people who have caused his moral downfall and made his zest for cooking vanish. That whole angle seems forced, just to show how demented Chef Slowik is, and that's it.
Yeah, it's just, it seems like a silly excuse for such a character that's, built up to be so smart and so analytical. Oh, you gotta die because you saw this terrible movie of yours. I mean, all the other characters do make sense of why they're there, why they've caused his emotional career and downfall, but not John Leguizamo's character.
Yeah, he was pretty disposable.
Yeah. Now, fourth of the script failings that make no sense is that of all the high-class escorts in the world, Margot had to be exactly and coincidentally the same one that one of the few male guests attending the dinner had been with in the past.
Yeah, it's too much of a coincidence.
Yeah, this seems like a forced congruence that didn't need to be added, because Margot's scenes with the client's wife later on are not revelatory and feel uninspired.
Yeah, they don't really add anything.
Yeah, so...
And yet again, our biggest problem with the movie is the belief that the entire staff is cognizant and willing to go through with the mass suicide. Chef Slowick is not a warm and fuzzy kind of guy. He rules with fear and intimidation. In fact, part of the storyline revolves around the fact that he was sexually abusive towards the staff, and when his advances were negated by one of his female chefs, he showed a flagrant disdain towards her to admonish her.
Yeah, even the lady chef who was sexually abused by Chef Slowick acknowledges his plan to kill everyone, both staff and guests, is sound in their eyes.
Right, it was her idea.
Yeah, and they will not waver. So the belief that everyone stands by in attention and no one breaks down or has second thoughts as the night progresses and they know they're about to roast themselves alive is a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
Even within the more darkly comedic constraints of the movie.
Which directly relates to the shocking ending. For Chef Slowick, there's nothing else to prove. He knows that at the pinnacle he's reached, the only way to go is down. His success has alienated him, and there are hints that he's lost more than his passion for the sake of his art.
Yeah, that's right. At one point in his secret room, we see pictures of what presumably appear to be a family.
Yeah.
Where are they now? And at the expense of what are they no longer present? So for Slowick, if he's going to go out, he's going to go out in a literal blaze of glory.
And the blaze of glory shows that even though his passion and ego have been hurt, his artistic integrity is through and through to the core. And he will stick to his narrative conceits, even if it means suicide for him and his staff.
Yet the overall commentary the movie's trying to make with the ending is that both sides of the proverbial kitchen counter are doomed. The servers for their unflinching commitment to appease undeserving clients, and the consumers for not appreciating the artistry and efforts of the people that serve them. So their immolation is the only way for their two worlds to actually meet.
Like the many dishes throughout the film's aims are heady and high concept, but also they leave us empty and unsatisfied. There might have been a good movie in there somewhere, but its jump from genre to genre fails to connect with us in a meaningful way. We don't know if it's a comedy, to be scared, to be horrified, to feel for Margot or Chef Slowick, to root for the snobby guests or revel in their demise, or at the end of the day, just sit back and watch Ralph Fiennes do his thing.
Yeah, we're left unsure of how we should digest the film.
Right. And even though it tries to tackle all these genres, across the board within each, it just doesn't succeed in any of them for us.
It's very hard for movies to cross genres successfully.
Right.
And hit all the notes from each genre. And I think this movie doesn't do that very well.
It just falls flat.
It does have some comedic moments, but then it has some horrific moments. But the merging of two, not that I'm saying it can't be done, it can be done successfully.
Right.
But in this case, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Now we thought it'd be funny to end this on a Gene Shalit type of cheesy note. The menu is a jambalaya we need to send back to the kitchen for having too many ingredients and not enough zest. Let's watch Babette's Feast.
Or the cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover.
To cleanse our palate from this one.
Yeah. And now for ratings of the film. What would you rate it?
Not very well, unfortunately. I think I would give it a 3.5 out of 10.
Oof.
Mainly, that 3.5 is held up by Ralph Fiennes and his performance. He's always great in everything. He's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think the movie doesn't do him justice, and it fails to... All the ingredients that it tries to mesh and gel together, it doesn't. It has okay moments of horror. It has okay moments of being a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It has okay moments of comedic timing and stuff, but it doesn't all mesh well together for me.
Right.
It's kind of left me a little bland in all areas. Storyline wise, there's too many things that I think there's, after the Glass Onion movie, there's kind of that thing of how much we can throw at the wall and what will stick.
Yeah.
Without slowing down to realize, well, these things don't make sense if you're trying to actually build a
a decent
story
Yeah.
that actually makes sense. I do like some of the conceits the movie's going for about the division between classes, about the servers and the consumers.
Yeah.
And I agree, that's a good point of exploration, but, something like Triangle of Sadness is actually better at that.
Right.
And for this movie to work, it's more about a misguided worshiping of a false prophet or a false idol that these chefs all look down to and are subservient to and are, live in fear of. And,
I like how you said that, look down to, because they literally look down.
Yeah, when he passes
no eye
them.
contact, yeah.
And, there are several moments that just felt like shock value that didn't make sense. There's two characters that before the grand finale suicide already killed themselves.
Right.
And you wonder, does Chef Slowick have so much power over them that he can, with just a few words, wield that over them?
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, maybe as a allegory it works, but in the seemingly real world the movie lives within, it doesn't for me.
Yeah, agreed.
So how about yourself? What would you rate it?
So I would probably give it a 6 out of 10, only because I didn't think it was horrendous as a film, but I also didn't think it was a masterpiece. It was pretty average. It was, I don't want to say mediocre, but it was okay as a film.
But it's getting all these award recognitions and stuff.
And we don't understand why. We didn't see any amazing qualities about it, because it's a film that, quite frankly, wasn't really memorable, and we wouldn't rewatch again. So,
if only for Ray Fiennes, he's.
I know, only him.
He's the great part
phenomenal.
of the movie, and his little clap thing.
Oh yeah, that was so great.
It's funny, but and I think that is also we both enjoyed that this snobby thing of artists.
Yes.
In this case, a chef, but that artists, if they can just expound enough
on a certain narrative,
that's it. It's enough.
People eat it up.
People eat it up, and they
Literally.
forget about the actual end product.
Right.
And I think that's a failing of today's society, and the movie actually acknowledges that very well. So that's,
true.
I guess, part of my 3.5 goes into not only Ray Fiennes'
Fiennes'
performance, but also that.
Right. Agreed. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more Film Snob reviews.